Hi, this is Alison Hicks from BackSPIN Radio show.
Hi, Alison. Hi, Dave. Like Alison said, I'm Ken Adams, and I lived in South Carolina, and I was married for 20 years to a woman who virtually contributed nothing to our marriage. And after 20 years of marriage, she decided that she wanted a divorce. And even though I didn't want a divorce, and I have to tell you, the reason that I didn't want a divorce wasn't because that I thought that we could ever really work out between each other. I didn't want a divorce because I was not an idiot. I understood that the courts are biased against fathers, and that a divorce meant me being separated from my child. I have a child who has Down syndrome, and he's the biggest part of my life, and I just didn't want to be separated from my child. Now, if I could have divorced my wife and kept custody of my child and got the deal that she had gotten, I would have divorced her long ago. But that's not the case. That's not how it works. Fathers really get a raw deal when it comes to divorce, when it comes to custody, and when it comes to having to pay alimony and child support. The unfairness is devastating. And, I've heard arguments that, the court really isn't biased. And most of those arguments and articles, you can find them online if you look. Most of what they're saying is that the reason the court's not biased, and it appears to be, is because mothers are just parents. So it's not the court's bias, it's just that women are better parents. It's just amazing. Out of the cases that custody is challenged, only 10% of the fathers actually get custody of their children. Now, when I asked my lawyer about custody of my child, he asked me on what grounds. Now, I'm sure no one asked my wife on what grounds that she have to take custody away from me. But yet I'm being asked, what grounds do I have? And that's exactly the way it works. I have to have grounds to take custody away from her. She doesn't have to have any reason at all to take custody. It's just assumed that she's going to get custody. In fact, South Carolina has a 1-year waiting period. And everybody thinks that this is a good thing, that 1-year waiting period is somehow going to make it harder to get a divorce and make it where there are less divorces. It doesn't work that way. How the waiting period works is that she files for separate support and maintenance. The separate part means that you get evicted from your home. Support and maintenance means that you're going to pay alimony and child support for a whole year without even going to a trial. In fact, at the initial hearing, as we were walking in, I was informed by my lawyer that I am not allowed to speak. So you're not allowed to speak. You're just there to hear the hearing. And what the hearing is all about is to find out what you have. Once they find out what you have, then they decide how much she's going to get. And it just reminded me of, I'm going to give away my age here, but it just reminded me of the old Western movie, Judge Roy Bean. Now, I remember Judge Roy Bean coming into a courtroom and saying, somebody tell me what he did so I know what I'm hanging him for. But But in this case, it was, somebody tell me how much he's got so we know how much we're going to sue him for. And apparently that's the way it works. What was really unfortunate in my case is that my wife's lawyer asked that half the house payment be made by me on top of child support and alimony. Now, if you know anything about child support and alimony, you would know that housing is included in both child support and alimony. So I was being hit again. The judge agreed to this. Now, we had no say in it. My lawyer, stated to me that was wrong, that, he shouldn't have done that. But what do you do about it? You can't do anything to do about it. It would cost you more to appeal and try to get it overturned than you would pay just paying it. So I don't know how many people he's done this to, but it just goes on and continues, and it doesn't look like it's going to get corrected. He may never know about his mistake.
Does this just happen in South Carolina? Because when I lived in California, it was very more liberal, or Michigan, they did a 50-50. And I'm not being biased, but it seems like South Carolina is really bad. If they take half of your check, and they take, and she doesn't have to work. Your kid is disabled. She's got it made. I mean, what does she do with all that money? It doesn't make sense to me. Somebody around here has been screwed, and it seems like it's you.
Well, yeah, and I wouldn't say that she's getting a lot of money. She is getting more than I am because she's receiving SSI for a disabled child, which I have a problem with that because when we were married, we didn't qualify for SSI because I earned too much money. But now, since we're divorced and supposedly I'm supposed to be paying his child support, and of course she's supposed to be making a contribution to it, but the difference between the contribution that I make to child support and the contribution that she makes to child support is that if I don't pay child support, I go to jail. If she doesn't even have a job, it still assumes that she is paying her share.
Okay.
One thing we were talking about earlier.
The one thing that bothers me, if she does get remarried, you still have to pay alimony in South Carolina.
Well, that's not in all cases. It's kind of a special condition in my case. And the reason that came up is because we were dealing with a situation where I had a disabled child who I would possibly be paying child support for the rest of his life, the rest of my life. And that is a possibility that I'll be paying child support forever, for as long as I live. And with the permanent alimony that they have in South Carolina, I could be paying my wife's alimony for the rest of my life. And right now, I don't have enough money to support myself. If it wasn't for my family helping me out, I'd be homeless. There's no doubt in my mind I would be homeless because I couldn't afford the apartment that I have. I wouldn't be able to take care of myself. I don't know how long I would keep the job when I can't even take a shower or, keep from wearing tattered clothes. And, it's just it's a bad situation. And, I hate to say that it's a bad situation because, a bad situation is your house gets struck by lightning This is a bad situation because of bad laws.
Well, you go to church, you know, you're a good citizen, you go to work every day, you're good to your mother. And David, do you have any comments? I don't know if David's online.
Have we lose David? I think we must have lost David.
He is taping the show, so he will hear it on YouTube. So he is divorced, and he's in a similar situation. And I know he probably is on Christmas break right now. So we got to thank him for letting us be on the show tonight. I know he's going through. I know there's a lot of men, and there's a lot of women out there. And we did do a little talk before the show. I lived in California, and I didn't get child support as a female for 15 years. And I worked so hard as a tennis pro, and oh my gosh, I hustled and hustled and hustled. I never got a dime, and all we did is ask. My dad's an attorney, and a nice one. I love my dad to death. I just adore him. And he wrote a letter that if Michael Canella would pay just half the daycare, which would have been, I think, $25 a month, it wouldn't go to waste. Because some people waste, you know, some women, they go out and they take their child support money and they waste it. But we wrote him a letter, a legal letter, and he still didn't pay. And I worked 7 days a week. And I did the best for my daughter, Jess Hicks. And she came to my tennis classes. She's a really good tennis player because she got to come to my tennis lessons. She got to come to work with Mommy. And she's going to U of M, and she's going to become an orthodontist. Very smart kid. But we tried our best without getting child support, you know, without having a deadbeat dad. And, you know, you have to use your means even if you don't get them. And you got to go forward. Like I think that you did, and you used your family, and you did the best that you could do. And I met your family, and they're so nice. I met your mother. I met your sister. I met your brother-in-law, and I went to your church. They're just wonderful people. And you should be really, really proud of how you've handled the situation that you've gone through with a kid with Down syndrome. And
well, I've been really blessed by the family that I have. We have. I've always thought about my family as being very functional. You hear about dysfunctional families all the time, but I've always viewed my family and seen my family as being a very functional family. I don't know, you know, in our adult years, I don't know if you've ever had a fight about anything. My brother and I sometimes didn't get eye to eye on things, but I mean, it's nothing that we fought about, really. I mean, we might have argued a little bit, but that's
well, it shows, and you know, it's hard. Sometimes life is hard. We all go through some turmoil, and I mean, I just recently moved to Augusta, Georgia. My daughter's going to U of M on a full ride, and I tried my best with her, and that's all you can do. You know, I truly appreciate everything my dad's done, and the older they get, you got to really appreciate your parents. And I think that's the message that we have to get out.
Family is very important, and it's just saddening to see how so many families are getting torn apart for no justifiable reason. That's what gets me the most, is that their no-fault divorce means that I did nothing wrong, but yet I'm expected to suffer because my wife wants to break her wedding vows. I just think that's wrong. I think it's wrong for the court to take it upon itself to decide what's best for my child. To me, it's not a matter of what is in the best interest of the child. It's a matter of who decides what's in the best interest of the child. I think the court, all of us really, should look at parents, and unless there's a reason or evidence to doubt it, let's just assume that both parents are capable of raising the child and that both parents have the best interests of the child at heart. Now, when you look at it that way, you can say, okay, well, who gets custody when there's a disagreement between mom and dad? Well, to me, easy. It's whoever is at fault for the destruction of the family. Because to me, it's unfair to say that the person who's responsible for the destruction of the family gets to decide how the family is restructured afterwards. You know, to me, that's just terribly wrong. No, I'm not saying that the court has no say in it. If there's some evidence showing that one parent is unfit, of course the court can look out for the best interests of the child, and there may be a case where both parents are equally at fault for the destruction of the marriage. And the court, of course, could decide what was in the best interest of the child. But as it stands now, the court pretty much said, okay, you're both responsible for the divorce. It doesn't matter that one of you doesn't want the divorce.
That just doesn't sound fair.
And we're going to decide what's best for your child. And they always decide for the mother.
And that's where I go back to Michigan or California. It's 50-50, you know. Right. And even if the dad works or the mom works, even in Arizona, I mean, and it's it works.
Mm-hmm.
You get along, and you get them 1 week, you get them off 1 week. You get them on 1 week, you get them off 1 week. And I believe in that 100%. And then, you know, you buy them groceries, they buy them groceries. You know, and if one person makes a little bit more money, they help each other out.
Mm-hmm. Well, in South Carolina, there are 3 forms of custody. One is shared custody, which means each parent spends an equal amount of time with the child. They both supply an equal amount of support. They both have an equal say in how the child is raised. The second kind is joint custody. That's where one parent has the say, the other parent has visitation. They say that both parents have a say, but the problem with that is that one parent has the final say. So I have joint custody, so if I disagree with my wife, she gets the final say. So the only way that I get a say in my child's life is if my wife agrees with me. If she disagrees with me, I don't get a say. Now, the court does say that if I think she's being unreasonable, I can go back to court and have my say there. Maybe a judge will agree with me, maybe he won't. Problem with that is I'm living in poverty, and you're going to expect me to go hire a lawyer and pay court fees and all that just because my wife and I had a disagreement. Let's say that my child wanted to wear his pants hanging down with his underwear showing, and I didn't like that, and she was okay with it. Now, you expect me to go to court over his underwear showing? It's ridiculous. I'm not going to pay thousands of dollars because my child's underwear is showing.
No.
Especially when I'm living in poverty. It's utterly ridiculous. And of course, you're working 10 hours a day.
Mm-hmm. I mean, come on, you're making middle class income, which is going where? Where is your money going? And people say, oh, go get a job, go get a job. I mean, it just doesn't make sense. We got to wake up America. Mm-hmm. You know, people need to eat. We need to sleep. We need to get up and go to work and not get yelled at and say, why don't you have a job? Oh, it's easy to live on welfare because I get health insurance. Mm-hmm. And you know what? In some cases, it is. If your career's been taken away, mm-hmm. like in some cases.
Yeah, I can understand that, and I can understand where you're coming from. The problem that I have with my wife is that she has never tried to find a job. She made no attempts to get a job. The court, of course, has imputed a wage to her and lowered the amount of child support that I pay. But the court does not require that she get a job. So, in a sense, the only thing the court has done is lowered the amount of money that my child receives. And another problem I have with it is that people don't make minimum wage for all their life.
What does she do all day?
According to my son, she sits and watches TV. But like I was saying, if she had a job and she was making minimum wage, chances are she's not going to make minimum wage forever. I mean, she's going to build up some experience. She's going to find a better job. She might get a promotion. You know, things happen. People don't earn minimum wage for the rest of their lives. So, I mean, there's a potential there.
What about volunteering? Like, or join a group? Like, the second I got out here, I joined a group, the meetup group. Go hiking, meet people, promote your book, write, do something. Mm-hmm. You know, I got a residual check. I was so happy. For my book BackSPIN. I mean, it wasn't a lot of money, but people are buying my book. You get out. You don't sit home and eat bonbons. Mm-hmm. Like I love that show, Married with Children, where Peg just sits home and eats bonbons. But you got to get out and meet people, and like I said, then I got my day booked tomorrow.
Well, she does have family and friends. One amazing thing about my wife is how she can be mad at people and they would never know it. She's just, you know, when you meet her, you think that she was the kindest, most sweetest person you'd ever want to meet. And when I met her, I thought that. And I actually married her thinking that. But then after we were married, I discovered another side. And I discovered that even though she's nice and sweet all the time, when she's talking to somebody, when she gets home, she's angry and throwing things and upset. One episode happened, and it kind of summed her up completely. She had a lunch date with a friend, and the friend had to cancel. Her child was sick, and she had to take her child to the hospital or to the doctor's office. And when my wife was talking to her on the phone, she said, "Oh, don't worry about it. We'll do it some other time. I hope your child is okay." Just as sweet and nice to a woman as she can be. But then when she hung up the phone, she brought the phone. This was a counter phone, a house line. She brought the phone up to shoulder height and then slammed it into the kitchen floor and stomped away and said, "I never get to do nothing." And that pretty much summed her up. I mean, that's the way she was. And I remember her coming to me one time and saying, the phone just stopped working. I don't know why. It just stopped working. And I wanted to say to her, it's probably because she slammed it into the floor a dozen times. But I didn't say that because, I was walking on eggshells. She was ready to divorce me at any second and any minute. And it would just take a slight little thing like that, and I would lose my child. So you can imagine the type of stress that I was going through. My wife wasn't cooking. She insisted on eating out all the time. I would try to come home and cook to save money, and she would scream at me and tell me that she's hungry right now and she doesn't want to wait for me to cook, even though it would take less time for me to cook something than it would for us to go out. She didn't wash my clothes. She virtually went out of her way to do nothing for me.
Oh, you saw someone that I saw on one of the talk shows the other day.
Mm-hmm. That was the situation at home, and there's really nothing I could do about it. Even if I tried to complain about it, I'm still facing losing everything I have and my child. So, you just keep your mouth shut.
She probably had a lot of stress. I don't want to make light of it, but she probably had a lot of stress with the kids. And
what stress? The child was at school.
Well,
the child was at school most of the day. She saw him about 2 hours. She had alone time with him for about 2 hours a day between the time that he got out of school and the time I got home from work.
So she wasn't even a stay-home mom with the kids.
Not really. He wasn't homeschooled. He went to school. And when I would come home, he would be on the computer, and my son would be back in his room watching TV or listening to records or whatever. And it wasn't like she was spending all that time with him.
Like not at the gym, or maybe doing something positive, or like I used to teach tennis to kids that were in Down syndrome and stuff like that. And, it made me feel good.
Mm-hmm. Well, I would get up every morning and I would fix breakfast for my son. I would get him up and make sure he got dressed properly, and I would get him ready for school. Now, my wife complained that I didn't wake her up in the morning. When someone is arguing with you every time that you speak to them and is angry with you every time that you speak to them, why would you get them up? But she usually managed to get up before we left, and really the only reason that she had for getting up was to make sure that I didn't leave in time enough to get to work on time. Now, luckily, I had a boss that was understanding, but, she really could have caused a problem for me. If I didn't have a boss that was understanding, I would may have to have left and left my son at home. because she just wouldn't let me walk out the door with them until she said it was okay. Now, her reasoning for this was that if he gets to school too early, he has to sit in the gym. But we're only talking about, 5, 10 minutes. And after talking to his teacher, she's usually picking him up before that time, so he really wouldn't have to spend any time in the gym. And plus, the principal of the school came to me, and I came to both of us, and asked us if Jamie could come in a little bit early, that he wanted Jamie to be the greeter at the door of the school when everybody came in.
Yeah. Well, after
that
meeting,
was great for me.
After meeting your minister and wanting Jamie to light the Advent lights for Christmas Eve, I mean, you got to know that everybody cares about you, and we probably got to sort of cut this short a little bit, since David had to, he is on Christmas break, and I appreciate you talking about your show, and I am sure you are not the only person that
Thank you for having me on.
And you know what? I bet you there's, since the one show I had you on after I was on YouTube, I'm gonna get like thousands of emails. People really. I used to do prison, like the Innocence Project is my goal, and I work for the Innocence Project, and I've had PIs on and stuff like that, authors, but this has broadened my prospects, and I think that you did a really good job tonight, Ken. There's thousands and thousands, not just in South Carolina. Like I said, when I was in the courtroom and saw that poor little guy, David Irons and I were there. Oh my gosh. 1 month he didn't pay child support. And that female judge threw him in jail. $60 he owed. I mean, come on, let him go to school, let him go to college. I almost walked out and threw up. And you can't let people make some mistakes. Cops, you know what? Cops make some mistakes.
Mm-hmm.
Firemen make mistakes.
Yeah.
That's what I told my dentist today. I said, they got the badge, so they get off.
Mm-hmm.
They're not going to, oh, no, they don't have a record. They just flip their badge out. No, they don't go to prison. They don't. If they do 10 Jägermeisters at a bar, they don't go to jail. If they're a TO, they all party, and they show their sheriff badge, and they're swerving at 2 in the morning. Oh no! Oh, here's your sheriff badge. We'll follow you home. Now, a dentist, they get fringe benefits because they get their teeth cleaned. That's a different story. You know? They don't break the law. But if someone does something minor, like runs the yellow light, they could possibly get time or 10 parking tickets in Manhattan Beach, California. Guess what? 30 days in Tin City.
Well, let me just say to your listeners that they won't need more information about child support and no-fault divorce. There are two authors online that you can find. One is Stephen Baskerville, and the other one is Glenn Sachs. And they have researched and written several articles on the subject. And it's very easy to Google them or Bing them and find out more about this subject.
Okay, can you repeat that so our listeners can hear that better?
Okay. There are two authors online that you can find articles. One is Stephen Baskerville.
How do you spell it?
Yes. Baskerville.
Okay.
The other one is Glenn Sachs. And they both have done a lot of research. I know Stephen Baskerville has written some books. I'm pretty sure Glenn Sachs has too. And you can find out more about them online if you Google or Bing them.
Okay. I'm not sure I introduced myself. My name is Alison A. Hicks. I'm the host of BackSPIN Radio Show. You can find me at www.backspinmymovie.com. Or you can find me on Facebook at Alison A. Hicks or BackSPIN Movie. I have a book out. So BackSPInMyMovie.com. You don't have to put in the www. Just put in BackSPInMyMovie.com. Okay? Everything's online, and this will be on YouTube tomorrow or the next day if you didn't get a chance to listen in. And thank you
for having me on.
Thanks, Ken Adams. And I hope we hit home to some people. And if we have any other listeners that would like to tell their story, call me at 517-599-0016.